Hello everyone, welcome to the Aviation Talk delivered by Dr. Binh Tran from Vietnam Aviation Academy. Today we are going to talk about the Open Skies Agreement's impacts and airline strategic responses. So you know that the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, is the ASEAN, is a unique association which has developed its own methods of achieving economic integration by deepening economic links between its member states. So in recent years, the focus on economic integration has included introducing and strengthening a common aviation market. The ASEAN Single Aviation Market, in abbreviation, is the ASEAN. So the purpose of ASEAN is to improve transport links and maximize the potential for trade and commerce, foreign investment, tourism, and travel. So each having significant economic as well as social, cultural benefits for the ASEAN member states. Therefore, an open skies agreement established by the member states facilitates a unified single aviation market within the ASEAN region and replaces existing bilateral and multilateral air services agreements between the member states, many of which are inconsistent with the ASEAN's provision. So the ASEAN airline industry is currently categorized into two groups of countries which share common strengths in the airline management. The strongest groups consist of Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. The less comparative group comprises of Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Brunei, which are most vulnerable to the Open Skies Agreement. So the current disparities between the ASEAN economies and the airlines are simply too vast to reach the common goal of integrating the region into a single aviation market. So the success of a single aviation management of a single aviation market requires similar conditions among all participants. The 10 ASEAN member states are geographically dispersed, stretching from the Pacific to the Indian subcontinent and Australia to the doorstep of North Asia, have differing population numbers and are at different stages of economic development. This leads to a lack of equivalence among the member countries. As a result, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Vietnam have not signed any agreements with each other, despite having been at the negotiating table for 20 years, because the potential benefits to the airlines of these four nations are not equivalent. So with the airlines in the regions not being equal, airlines managers are attempting to find their own solutions to respond to the challenges of the aviation environment through the provision of the open skies regulations within the ASEAN region. So is it difficult for an economically weaker country to enter the aviation industry and compete successfully? Cambodia and Myanmar, for example, lag behind in promoting some level of open skies regulations because both lack competitiveness and suffer from weakness in aviation management. So comparing Laos to Thailand, the difference between airlines and aircraft of the two countries are so vast and stark, reflecting the level of economic disparity between those nations. So less economically developed nations and the smaller airlines will be disadvantaged by signing the Open Skies Agreement. Despite being granted the same rights as other participating nations because their comparative power is much weaker. The primary barrier will be the difficulty in procuring slots to fly to the stronger countries, which constantly draw higher traffic loss because those countries will prioritize allocation of slots for their own airlines. So, for example, Vietnam Airlines can employ freedom rights to fly to Hanoi, Binh Tran, Phnom Penh, or Saigon. Since Laos and Cambodia are smaller countries and are naturally inclined to offer slots, as their airports are underutilized and have surplus capacity. And however, it is virtually impossible for any Cambodian airlines to use freedom rights to fly the routes such as Phnom Penh, Jakarta, or Singapore, Phnom Penh. Firstly, they will encounter a dearth of slot availability, and secondly, they were not able to prevail over the airlines of those countries, which are larger and branded. And in addition, weaker airlines are threatened with elimination by stronger airlines if they do not seek the protection of their governments in order to gain some measure of equivalent strength. This is evidenced by some ASEAN countries, such as Indonesia and the Philippines, for example, not joining the Open Skies Agreement in totality because their government aspire to protect their national carriers. And for nations such as Cambodia, should Thailand's airline be permitted to operate routes from Cambodia to China and vice versa? The national carrier, such as Cambodian Air, will face almost certain death because this airline cannot compete with the Thai airlines who provide better aircraft services at cheaper prices. And similarly, what has kept Vietnam Airlines developing domestically over 20 years in a prohibition on Thai Airways flying domestically within Vietnam. So if not for this restriction, Vietnam Airlines would have lost out for being less competitive in terms of overall airline strength. So the fact that some countries' government actively work to protect their airlines is not a peculiar, it's not the ASEAN concern. The North American market is similarly extremely protective of its local airlines, especially the US and Canada. In ASEAN, the countries who are not willing to implement the Open Skies Agreement and not only adopt it selectively, include the Philippines and Indonesia, who protect their national carriers, Philippine Airlines and Garuda Airlines respectively. So increased competition is not the actual reason for countries refusing to adopt the entire Open Skies Agreement. They decline for their own national interest reasons as well. So Malaysia, for example, does not participate in the agreement because the Malaysian government wishes to protect its national airlines. This is the Malaysia Airlines, following its restructuring as a result of the crashes of MH370 and MH17. This is a politically motivated decisions because only Malaysia Airlines would not benefit from adopting the Open Skies Agreement. Meanwhile, in contradiction, AirAsia favors the Open Skies Agreement, and this airlines has established affiliates in South Asia, and including Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand, is a strategically alternative way to benefit from the agreement. So, though the Open Skies Agreement is countered by most countries that have a weaker aviation industry, Stronger countries such as Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia have managed to reach out to other regional countries by establishing cooperating in the form of subsidiaries or franchises. And due to restrictions on operating domestic flights in another country, the parent airlines use their subsidiary or franchise airlines to act as their branches in order to benefit the freedom rights. And this results in the Urban Skies Agreement, creating an advantage for a certain aviation group to develop and stimulate the franchise business model in the ASEAN aviation market. And Asia, in fact, is currently the outstanding airline in the ASEAN region that has created an airline franchise network in other countries by providing aircraft as its capital contribution. And franchising is the most common practice in many other industries, but this was not common in the aviation industry until the mid-1990s in the US and in 1990 in Europe, where airlines used this approach as a strategic response to the regulation of the transport industry. So applying the franchise business model in Asia, supports its partner with brand development, including aircraft delivery and interior, crew uniforms, customer service, flights, designated code, access to the sales system, and all additional support and training. And together with intellectual property and know-how. And similarly in the ASEAN region, Jetstar, a subsidiary of Australian Qantas Airways, has franchises branches in 3 countries: Jetstar Asia in Singapore, Jetstar Pacific in Vietnam, and Jetstar Japan. And a further example is Indonesia's Lion Air, a strong regional airline group which has franchises branches in Thailand is Thai Lion Air, and is Malindo Airlines in Malaysia. The Urban Skies Agreement has actually been leveraged by Asia to construct franchise cooperation in order to benefit from the freedom rights and avoid the protections imposed by other countries. And from the Asia's perspective, and the airlines believes that competition is allowing it to grow and helping it to open markets and create a level of efficiency that benefits passengers. And the Airlines is always a strong supporter of the Urban Skies Agreement because it's allowed them to turn a potential threat into a cultural opportunity to liberalize air travel and accessibility. And as a result, AirAsia has developed its route network to serve 3 countries in the region and become the diamond airlines in ASEAN. And the airline strategy is to engage on necessary bodies within ASEAN in order to boost its growth along with exploring all possibilities to liberalize the industry. So Southeast Asian countries have recently extremely aggressive in expanding their aviation industry. New airlines appearing in Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. And this has led to more routes opening to China, Macau, Japan, and Korea. And these new airlines include Bamboo Airways in Vietnam, Lanmi Airlines, JC International Airlines, and Mastercard Air in Cambodia, and New Gen Airways in Thailand, and Pan Pacific Airlines in the Philippines. And this raises the question, will these small airlines be able to survive? And the Urban Skies Agreements does not necessarily translate into the larger market. And despite the annual growth increase in the size of middle-class populations in Southeast Asia, and those who can afford to purchase the ticket, and this growth is not keeping pace with the growth of the new airlines. In fact, the primary threat to these small airlines is not derived from the Open Skies Agreement, forcing competition between small and large airlines, but rather the competition between those small airlines themselves. With investment from China, Cambodia's aviation landscape changed rapidly between 2015 and 2018, with 5 new airlines entering the market. And this obviously means limited opportunities for those airlines to grow and cohabit in such a small market. And furthermore, these airlines operate flights on the same routes, which make very little sense. And in actuality, there is no certain threat to small airlines from their bigger competitions in Japan or China, because passengers who can afford to fly with ANA or Japan Airlines, China Southern Airlines, will continue to fly with those airlines for their sponsored route network. And the small airlines will continue to be appealing to backpackers or VFR traffic. And the Open Skies Agreement encourages competition among airlines through the lowering of air tickets. A tough price war has now erupted in Southeast Asia. For example, JC International Airlines in Cambodia flies to Macau for $120, which is half of the cost of an equivalent Cathay Pacific Airways fare. This prompts the question: how long will a price war be sustainable for smaller airlines? And how long will JC International Airlines endure the losses, because profits are not possible on such low fare prices? Without feeder traffics, the small airlines are R&D airlines, flying point to point with no other mandate. And the larger ASEAN carriers are hub and sport airlines. So while they may take a loss on the first leg, they have the opportunity to earn a profit on the second leg. And an illustrative example for you would be if someone flies from Phnom Penh, Hong Kong, with JC International Airlines, the travel will be terminated in Hong Kong, and JC International Airlines can only earn from that single leg, regardless of any onward journey. And however, Cathay Pacific Airways has the potential to earn from those passengers flying Phnom Penh, Hong Kong, as well as any later onward journeys out of Hong Kong. Thus, a price war can only be sustained for a short period of time and would not contribute to better quality of service, because more new airlines appearing on the landscape are low-cost carriers, and their unique selling point is price and not quality of service. Another factor which illustrates that lowering prices cannot be sustained over the longer term in operating costs, which is in large part the factor beyond the control of airlines. The most significant factor influencing operating costs is the price of the aviation fuel. And this is a cost that airlines are unable to control but attempt to mitigate and manage through hedging. And with current price of a barrel of oil predicted to increase, there must be a point at which flying with a very cheap price on medium-haul routes will not be possible. So it also raises queries as to whether the new airlines or the bigger airlines operating them are running with an agenda other than transporting passengers. Thus, for as long as the market players can sustain a price war, the single aviation market policy will encourage only marginally higher traffic growth and will not increase the service quality and will not produce lower ticket prices in the short term. Concerning the major airlines, the Open Skies Agreement has not fundamentally changed or affected national airlines such as Vietnam Airlines, Airways, and Singapore Airlines. As national carriers, these airlines can regulate the effects of the Open Skies Agreement to operate at whatever time they choose. And given that their governments will negotiate, or at least attempt to negotiate, favorable bilateral agreements for their benefit. In other ASEAN countries, and Philippines Airlines and Garuda Airlines of Indonesia are not threatened by new entrants. In fact, the Philippines Airlines and Vietnam Airlines are the most profitable airlines in the ASEAN. And from the Vietnam Airlines point of view, as a national carrier, it supports the Open Skies Agreement because this encourages more tourists to visit the country, which is profitable for the national economy overall. And with more competitors in the market, the airlines aims to improve itself through better service provision. However, infrastructure is a barrier in some ASEAN countries such as Vietnam, the Philippines, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. The Vietnam Aviation Authority will consider opening the market significantly in order to fit into the development plans set out for the Vietnamese aviation industry. The quality of the Vietnamese aviation services industry will be diminished severely if the infrastructure has not been fully prepared to adapt to the Open Skies Agreement. And the fact that the Open Skies Agreement can facilitate major airlines taking advantage of freedom rights to operate in secondary cities. For example, Qatar Airways has used this rights to fly Doha, Saigon, Phnom Penh, Saigon, Doha. And Emirates used the rights to fly Dubai, Yangon, Phnom Penh, Dubai. And this is done to fill market gaps when nobody operates flights and does not threaten any other airlines in the region. They do not gain any significant market share in those countries because these rules are considered supportive rules to their main rules, transporting passengers between larger and smaller markets. They gain their profits from the primary rules only. As a global airlines, Qatar Airways support fair competition to assess the markets they have targeted for development with a strength in finance, technology, and fuel supplies. Qatar Airways is competing for customer based on products, service, and price. And similarly to AirAsia, it is able to benefit from liberalized and more open aviation market not only in Asia but also in the EU and the US. The greater liberalization in the airline industry and government deregulation have made air travel accessible to millions of people in both mature and emerging markets, and those airlines wish to maintain that trend into the future. In the Open Skies Agreement, in fact, do not guarantee a pure comparative environment is per aim of the policy. In the U.S. market, Qatar Airways is competing with strong airlines such as Delta and American Airlines, two of the largest U.S. airlines in terms of scale. And despite their position of strength, these two airlines have forced the U.S. government to re-regulate because they are losing market share to the Middle East allies, even on the home turf. And under pressure from the geopolitical forces surrounding the relationship between the U.S. and the Middle East nations, Qatar Airways do not compete vigorously in the U.S. market. And in order to maintain the good diplomatic relations with the U.S., Qatar Airways turned instead towards the EU and Asia as the key markets. And nevertheless, the Middle East airlines such as Qatar Airways, Emirates, and Etihad have still profited from the open skies to expand their presence in the U.S. For the benefits of customers who have limited choices under the monopoly of the U.S. airlines. And furthermore, Qatar Airways has prepared a backup plan. And after having signed the open skies agreement, by purchasing shares in weaker airlines, and this strategy is designed to enable cooperation from the alliance and in the event that flights to the U.S. are cut or not supported. So from my presentation, my research, we can conclude that the Open Skies Agreement has mostly a positive impact on ASEAN airline strategies, despite stimulating increased competition among the regional airlines and the active opposition of some other member states through government regulations. Thank you for your listening, and please note that our research was completed prior to the COVID-19. So the airline strategy or the airlines environments might be currently different at the moment. Thank you, and hope to see you in the next talk. Bye bye.